The house is quiet now, the kind of quiet that feels like it's pressing against your eardrums. It's been 3 weeks since everything exploded, and people keep asking me how I'm doing. I tell them I'm fine. I tell them I'm moving forward. But the truth is, I'm still trying to understand how I lived 5 years inside a lie so perfect. I never saw the seams. My name is Vanessa. I'm 29 years old, though I feel about 100 right now. And this is the story of how my husband convinced me to raise his secret daughter while I was breaking apart from infertility, and how I made him pay for every single lie. Drop your city in the comments, let's see how far this story travels. And if this resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe. You're not alone in this. But before I get there, I need you to understand what my life looked like before it all came crashing down. Because that's the part that hurts the most, not what happened, but what I thought I had. David and I met 7 years ago at a friend's wedding in Charleston. I was 22, fresh out of college, wearing a bridesmaid dress the color of champagne. He was 28, confident in that easy way some men have when they've never really been told no. He had dark hair that curled slightly at the ends when it got humid, and these eyes, God, those eyes, one blue, one green. Heterochromia, he'd explained when he caught me staring. A genetic quirk. Made him look like two different people depending on which side you stood on. It's rare, he'd said, grinning. 1 in 200 people. I thought it made him beautiful, unique, special. I had no idea it would be the thing that would eventually destroy us. We dated for 2 years before he proposed on a beach in Outer Banks at sunset. The kind of moment that looks like it belongs in a movie. I cried. My mom cried. His parents, Robert and Linda, flew in from Ohio and took us to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. They were the kind of people who said grace before every meal and had a cross in every room. They loved David with a fierceness that felt almost suffocating, but I told myself it was sweet, that he came from a loving family, that our kids would be so lucky to have grandparents like that. We got married 6 months later in a small church ceremony. I wore my grandmother's veil. David cried when I walked down the aisle. His vows were beautiful, something about how I was his home, his safe place, the person who made him believe in forever. I believed him. God, I believed every word. The first year of marriage was everything I'd dreamed of. We bought a house, a beautiful 3-bedroom colonial with a wraparound porch in a quiet neighborhood outside Atlanta. I worked as a marketing coordinator for a tech startup. David worked in pharmaceutical sales, traveling a few days a month but always coming home with stories and stupid souvenirs from airport gift shops. We talked about babies. We picked out names. We painted the smallest bedroom a soft yellow and called it the nursery to be. Then we started trying. Month after month, I'd take those tests. Month after month, 1 line instead of 2. At first, we laughed it off. It'll happen when it happens, David would say, kissing my forehead. But by month 6, the laughter stopped. By month 12, I was taking my temperature every morning, tracking ovulation like a second job, crying in bathroom stalls at work when my period came. We saw specialists. They ran tests, blood work, ultrasounds. For me, everything came back normal. For David, the sperm count was a little low, but not impossibly so. Keep trying, they said. Stay positive, positive. That word started to feel like a weapon. By year 3 of trying, I was a shell of myself. I stopped going to baby showers. I unfollowed pregnant friends on social media. I'd see mothers in grocery stores and feel this sick, twisting jealousy in my chest that made me hate myself. David held me while I sobbed into his chest, telling me it would happen, that we just needed to have faith, that God had a plan. His parents prayed for us. They sent us books about surrendering to God's timing. Linda would call and leave voicemails that always ended the same way. We're believing for a miracle, sweetheart. I wanted to believe too. But faith is a hard thing to hold on to when your body keeps failing you month after month. Then, 5 years into our marriage, everything changed. It was a Tuesday night in March. I remember because I'd just gotten my period that morning and spent my lunch break crying in my car. David came home late from a work trip, looking exhausted. He barely touched his dinner. I asked him what was wrong, and he just stared at his plate for a long time before finally speaking. "I need to tell you something," he said. His voice was tight, strained. My stomach dropped. In that moment, I thought he was going to ask for a divorce, that he'd met someone who could give him children, that he was done waiting. "It's about my sister," he said. I blinked. David had mentioned a sister exactly twice in the 7 years I'd known him. Once when we first started dating, he'd said they weren't close, that she'd had a rough life, that his parents didn't like to talk about her. And once at our wedding, when his mom got drunk and muttered something about praying for Rebecca to find her way back to God. "Rebecca?" I said carefully. He nodded, rubbing his face. "She's in jail. Drugs. She got arrested 3 weeks ago in Tennessee. Possession with intent to distribute." "Oh my God, David. I'm so sorry." "She has a daughter," he interrupted. "Mia. She's 14. The air in the room changed. I could feel it, the weight of what he was about to ask me. "She's been in foster care since Rebecca got arrested. Bouncing around. She's had 3 placements in 3 weeks. His eyes met mine, and they were wet. "Pleading. "Vanessa, she's family. She's a kid. She has nobody." I opened my mouth, closed it. My mind was racing. "I know this is huge," he continued, reaching for my hand across the table. "I know we're dealing with our own stuff. But baby, this could be. I mean, we've been praying for a child. Maybe this is God's answer. Maybe this is how we're meant to be parents." Something twisted in my chest. Part of me recoiled. This wasn't the same. This wasn't a baby. This wasn't what I'd imagined. But another part of me, the part that had been carved hollow by years of negative tests and empty arms, perked up. A child. A teenage girl who needed a home. A niece. Family. "Have you met her?" I asked quietly. David shook his head. "Not since she was a baby. Rebecca cut us off years ago. But she's my blood, Vanessa. She's got nowhere else to go. If we don't take her, she'll just keep getting shuffled around the system." I thought about it. I thought about the yellow room upstairs that had been sitting empty for 3 years. I thought about all the love I had stored up with nowhere to put it. I thought about what kind of person I'd be if I said no to a child in need. "Okay," I whispered. David's face broke into the biggest smile I'd seen in months. He came around the table and pulled me into his arms, thanking me over and over, telling me I was amazing, that Mia was so lucky, that this was going to be good for us. "We're going to be parents," he said into my hair, and I let myself believe him. The process moved fast. David coordinated everything with CPS in Tennessee. There were background checks and home visits and mountains of paperwork. But within 3 weeks, it was settled. Mia would come live with us. Temporary guardianship, with the possibility of permanent custody depending on what happened with Rebecca's case. I threw myself into preparing for her arrival. I repainted the yellow nursery a soft lavender, something more age-appropriate. I bought new bedding, string lights, a desk, a bookshelf. I stocked up on toiletries and school supplies. David's mom sent over boxes of clothes she'd collected from her church's donation pile. I sorted through everything, washing and folding, trying to imagine the girl who would wear these things. David showed me the one photo he had of Mia, a grainy picture from Rebecca's Facebook from years ago. A little girl with dark hair and a gap-toothed smile. She looked like any kid. Normal, sweet. "She's probably changed a lot," David said. "That picture's old." I studied his face in the photo, tried to see the resemblance. Couldn't really find one. But then again, I'd never met Rebecca. Never seen a picture of her. "Does she look like her mom?" I asked. "I guess," David said with a shrug. "I honestly don't remember Rebecca that well. We weren't close. It should have struck me as odd, this casual distance from a sibling, this vagueness about family. But I was too focused on getting everything ready. Too focused on being the hero of this story. The day Mia arrived, I took off work and spent the morning stress cleaning the house. David drove to Tennessee to pick her up, a 6-hour round trip. I wanted to come with him, but he said it might be overwhelming for her to meet both of us at once in an unfamiliar place. "Let me bring her home," he'd said. "Then she can meet you here, where it's safe, where it's hers now too." I agreed. It made sense. I waited by the window like a kid on Christmas morning, When David's car finally pulled into the driveway at 4 in the afternoon, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I saw her. She climbed out of the passenger seat slowly, looking around at the neighborhood with a guarded expression. She was tall for 14, probably 5'7" or 5'8", with long dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore ripped jeans and an oversized hoodie, a backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked thin, tired, wary, and when she turned toward the house, when she looked up at me standing in the doorway, I saw them. Those eyes. One blue, one green. Exactly like David's. My breath caught. I felt this strange flutter in my chest, part recognition, part something else I couldn't name. It was such a distinctive trait, such a rare genetic quirk. What were the odds? 1 in 200, David had said. And here was this girl, his niece, with the exact same condition. I pushed the thought away as quickly as it came. Genetics were weird. Traits ran in families. It made sense that she'd have the same eyes as her uncle. That's how DNA worked, right? David caught my eye and smiled. Vanessa, this is Mia. I stepped forward, trying to look warm and welcoming instead of frozen in shock. Hi, sweetheart. Welcome home. Mia didn't smile. She just nodded, hugging her backpack tighter. Come on, I said gently. Let me show you your room. I led her upstairs, David following behind. When I opened the door to the lavender bedroom, I watched her face carefully. She looked around at the string lights, at the new comforter, at the desk I'd set up by the window, and something in her expression softened. You did all this for me? She asked quietly. Of course, I said, my throat tight. This is your home now, Mia, for as long as you need it. She set her backpack down on the bed and turned to look at me. Really look at me. And in that moment, I saw it, not just the eyes, but something else. A sadness that seemed too deep for a 14-year-old. A weariness that came from carrying too much for too long. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to tell her everything would be okay. But she looked so fragile, like she might shatter if I got too close. I'll let you get settled, I said instead. Bathroom's across the hall. Come down whenever you're ready. I made lasagna for dinner. She nodded again, and David and I left her alone, downstairs. I grabbed David's arm. Did you see her eyes? What about them? David, she has heterochromia, just like you. He blinked, like he hadn't even noticed. Oh, yeah. I guess she does. Must run in the family. That's so rare though, Vanessa. He took my hands, looking at me intently. I know this is a lot. I know you're probably feeling a million things right now. But she's here. She's safe. We're doing a good thing. I nodded slowly. He was right. What did it matter if she had the same eyes? It was just genetics. Just a coincidence. I swallowed my unease and focused on what mattered. We had a child in our home who needed us. The first week with Mia was awkward. The way I imagine all first weeks are when you bring a traumatized teenager into your life. She was quiet, polite, but distant. She ate meals with us without saying much. She'd sit at the table, pushing food around her plate, answering our questions with 1 or 2 words. How was your day? Fine. Do you need anything for school? No. What kind of music do you like? I don't know. David seemed to take it in stride, but I could feel the wall between us and her, and it frustrated me. I wanted to break through. I wanted her to trust us, to see that we were safe, that this wasn't temporary, that we loved her, because I did love her. Or at least, I loved the idea of her. The daughter I'd been waiting for, even if she came to me this way. I started leaving little notes in her lunch. Have a great day. You're doing amazing. She never mentioned them, but they always came back crumpled in her backpack, and I chose to believe that meant she read them. I took her shopping for clothes, real clothes, not hand-me-downs. At first, she just shrugged at everything I held up, but eventually, she started pointing at things she liked. A graphic tee with a band I'd never heard of. High-top Converse. A denim jacket. Can I really get this? She asked, holding the jacket like it might disappear. Of course, I said, my heart breaking a little. Whatever you want, honey. She smiled for the first time. A real smile. And God, It lit up her whole face. That night, she wore the jacket to dinner and actually talked to us. She told us about a girl at school who'd been nice to her, about a teacher who taught English and didn't make her feel stupid when she didn't know an answer, about how she'd always wanted to learn guitar but never had the chance. David and I exchanged a look across the table. Progress. We could get you a guitar, I offered. Sign you up for lessons if you want. Mia's eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously. She looked at David, as if needing his permission. He nodded. If that's what you want, kiddo, that would be. She trailed off, looking down at her plate. Thank you. I reached over and squeezed her hand. She didn't pull away. By week 3, things started to feel almost normal. Mia had settled into school. She joined an after-school art club. She started leaving her bedroom door open. She laughed at David's terrible dad jokes. She asked me to teach her how to braid her hair. We took her to David's parents' house for Sunday dinner. Robert and Linda fell all over themselves welcoming her, hugging her, telling her how much she looked like Rebecca, how grateful they were that we'd taken her, and you're an angel, Vanessa, Linda said to me in the kitchen, tears in her eyes. Not every woman would do this. I smiled, feeling warm, validated, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Mia called me Aunt Vanessa. Not Mom, I didn't expect that, but it still made my chest ache in a good way every time I heard it. David seemed lighter, happier. He and Mia started having these little inside jokes I wasn't part of. He'd ruffle her hair when he walked past. He'd quiz her on vocab words for school. He bought her a guitar for her birthday in April, a beautiful acoustic that she cried over, hugging it like it was the most precious thing in the world. I started to believe this was the answer, that God had brought her to us for a reason, that maybe I wasn't meant to give birth to a child, maybe I was meant to rescue one. But then, small things started to bother me, little things I couldn't quite name. Like how David and Mia never seemed to need my help connecting, how easy it was between them, how she'd go to him first with questions, with problems, with stories about her day, how sometimes I'd walk into a room and they'd both go quiet, like I'd interrupted something, how David started working from home more, rearranging his schedule to be there when Mia got home from school, how he knew things about her I didn't, her favorite snack, the name of her childhood stuffed animal, what she was afraid of in the dark. How do you know all this? I asked him once. She told me, he said with a shrug. We talk. It was innocent, totally innocent. He was bonding with his niece. That's what I told myself. But there was this whisper in the back of my mind that wouldn't go away. This tiny, persistent voice that said something isn't right. And then there were the eyes. I couldn't stop looking at them. Couldn't stop noticing how they caught the light the same way David's did. How the blue one had the same dark ring around the iris. How the green one had that same amber fleck near the pupil. One night, after Mia had gone to bed, I googled it. Heterochromia inheritance patterns. The results made my stomach twist. Heterochromia could be genetic. Yes, but it didn't follow typical inheritance patterns. It wasn't like brown eyes or dimples. Most cases were sporadic random mutations, developmental quirks. The odds of two people in the same family having the exact same type of heterochromia, with the same color distribution, were astronomically low, unless they were directly related, parent to child. I closed the laptop so fast it nearly slipped off my lap. No, that was insane. David wouldn't do that. He wouldn't lie about something like that. He was a good man, a faithful husband. He'd been by my side through every single fertility heartbreak. He'd cried with me, prayed with me. He wouldn't, but the thought had been planted, and once it was there, I couldn't dig it out. I started watching them differently, started noticing things I'd overlooked before. How Mia had David's nose, the same slightly crooked smile, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. How David never talked about Rebecca, never showed me pictures of her, never let me reach out to her in jail, even just to send a letter. It's better if we don't, he'd said. She's not in a good place. I don't want her dragging Mia back into that life. How his parents had been so quick to accept Mia, so quick to love her, like they'd known her all along. How Mia was 14, Exactly the age she'd be if David had gotten someone pregnant 15 years ago, right around the time we met. I felt sick. I felt crazy. I felt like I was losing my mind. One Saturday afternoon in May, David took Mia to a guitar lesson. I was alone in the house, supposed to be working on a presentation for work, but I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about those eyes. Before I could talk myself out of it, I went upstairs to Mia's room. It felt like a violation, like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But my hands were shaking, my heart was racing, and I needed to know. I found her hairbrush on the dresser, a few strands of dark hair tangled in the bristles. I pulled them free, my hands trembling, and sealed them in a Ziploc bag. Then I went into our bathroom and pulled a few strands of David's hair from his brush. Another bag. That night, after everyone was asleep, I ordered a DNA test kit online. The kind that promises results in 3 to 5 days. The kind that would tell me if I was crazy or if my whole life was a lie. The kit arrived on a Tuesday. I swabbed the inside of my cheek for my own sample just to make sure the test was legitimate. To have a control and package everything up according to the instructions, I mailed it from a post office to towns over. I paid extra for expedited processing. Then I waited. Those 5 days were the longest of my life. I moved through the house like a ghost. I smiled at Mia. I kissed David. I made dinners and folded laundry and pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was screaming. The results came on a Sunday. David and Mia had gone to his parents' house for lunch. I'd begged off, claiming a migraine. The moment their car pulled out of the driveway, I opened my laptop and logged into the testing site. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type my password. The page loaded. Results. Ready to view. I clicked. And there it was, in cold, clinical language that made the room spin. Probability of paternity. 99. 9. David is the biological father of Mia. The words blurred. My stomach lurched. I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up, heaving until there was nothing left. My whole body shaking. Mia wasn't his niece. She was his daughter. He'd lied. He'd looked me in the eye, held my hand, let me cry on his shoulder about our infertility, and the whole time he had a daughter. A teenage daughter he'd kept hidden for 14 years, and then God. The cruelty of it, he'd brought her into our home and let me play mother to her while I was breaking apart from not being able to have children of my own. I don't know how long I sat on that bathroom floor. Long enough for the sun to shift in the sky. Long enough for my legs to go numb. When I finally stood up, I felt different. Hollowed out. Like someone had reached inside me and scooped out everything soft and left only rage. I heard the front door open downstairs. Vanessa? David called. We're home. You feeling better? I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale. My eyes were red. I looked like I'd seen a ghost. In a way I had. The ghost of the man I thought I'd married. I closed the laptop, splashed cold water on my face, smoothed down my hair, and then I went downstairs and smiled at my husband and his daughter. Much better. I lied, because I wasn't ready to blow everything up yet. Not until I made him pay for every single lie. The first thing I did was stop sleeping in our bed. I told David I was having insomnia, that I didn't want to keep him awake with my tossing and turning. He bought it without question, kissing my forehead and telling me to take some melatonin. I moved into the guest bedroom down the hall and locked the door every night. I couldn't stand to be near him. Couldn't stand the way he'd reach for me in the dark, like he had any right to touch me. Like he hadn't spent our entire marriage lying to my face. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started digging. I took a sick day from work and spent 8 hours on the computer, searching. I started with Rebecca, his supposed sister. The one in jail. The one who'd never existed in any meaningful way in David's life until suddenly she was the perfect excuse to bring his secret child into our home. I searched arrest records in Tennessee. Nothing under Rebecca Hayes, David's maiden name. I tried Rebecca with different last names, different spellings. Nothing. I called the county jail in the town David had said she was arrested in. I pretended to be a family member trying to locate an inmate. I'm sorry, ma'am, the woman on the phone said. We don't have anyone by that name in our facility. Are you sure you have the right county? I tried 3 other counties. Same answer. Rebecca didn't exist. Or if she did, she wasn't in jail. She'd never been in jail. The whole story was a fabrication. Next, I went through David's phone while he was in the shower. I'd never done that before in 7 years of marriage. I never had a reason to. His texts were mostly work stuff, fantasy football groups, messages with his parents about Sunday dinners, a few conversations with Mia, normal stuff. Don't forget your lunch. How was school? Love you, kiddo. Love you, kiddo. My stomach turned. I scrolled back further. Months, years. There was nothing suspicious. No secret conversations. No evidence of an affair. But then I noticed something odd. David's phone was only a year old. He'd upgraded last spring after dropping his old one in a lake on a fishing trip with his dad. Convenient. All his texts, all his call history, everything only went back 14 months. Whatever secrets he'd been keeping, whatever evidence there might have been, it was gone. I checked his email next. The Gmail account he'd had since college. He'd left it logged in on the laptop we shared. Something that had never mattered before. I searched for Mia. Dozens of results. But they all started around the same time, March of this year, right before she moved in with us. I searched for Rebecca. 2 results. Both from his mom. Both from years ago. One from 6 years ago. Still praying for Rebecca. Hope she finds peace. One from 8 years ago. I know you don't want to talk about your sister, but she's still family. We have to have faith. I sat back, staring at the screen. So Rebecca was real, or had been real, at some point. But the timeline didn't make sense. If Rebecca had gotten arrested 3 weeks before David told me, why were there no emails about it? No calls? No evidence that he'd been in contact with CPS? I searched his email for CPS and foster care and custody. Nothing. How had he arranged for Mia to come live with us with no paper trail? Unless he hadn't arranged anything. Unless Mia had been with him or near him all along. I felt like I was losing my mind. Every answer I found just created more questions. I needed to talk to someone who would tell me the truth. That someone was Linda. David's mother loved me, but she loved David more. She loved him with a fierce, protective intensity that had always made me a little uncomfortable. But she was also deeply religious, and she believed in honesty, in confession, in bringing sins to light. I called her on a Thursday afternoon when I knew David was at work and Mia was at school. Vanessa, honey. She answered, bright and cheerful. What a nice surprise. How are you? I'm good, Linda. Hey, I was actually hoping to talk to you about something. Of course, dear. What's on your mind? I took a breath, steadied myself. It's about Rebecca. Silence on the other end. I guess I don't know much about her. I continued, trying to sound casual. David doesn't like to talk about her, and I understand why. But now that Mia's here, I thought maybe I should know more. About her mom. About the family history. More silence. Then, what did you want to know? Well, for starters, what was she like? Before everything went wrong? Linda sighed. Rebecca was complicated. She and David were close when they were young, but she went down a dark path. Drugs, bad relationships. She cut us off about 15 years ago. We tried to help her, tried to bring her back to the Lord, but she didn't want it. That must have been so hard. It was. Still is. We pray for her every day. And you haven't had contact with her since then? 15 years? A pause. Not really, no. David tried a few times over the years, but she wouldn't respond. It's been painful for him. I gripped the phone tighter. So how did he find out she'd been arrested? How did he even know about Mia? Another pause. Longer this time. Linda? CPS tracked him down, she said finally. They found his information listed as an emergency contact from years ago. But if they hadn't talked in 15 years, Vanessa, honey, why are you asking all this? Her tone had shifted. Defensive now. I'm just trying to understand, I said carefully. It's all been so fast. And Mia's been through so much. I want to make sure I'm doing right by her. You are. You're doing a wonderful thing, taking her in. David said you were hesitant at first, but I'm so glad you came around. That girl needs a stable home. Hesitant. He told his mother I was hesitant. Like I was the problem. Like I was the one who needed convincing. Did you know Mia before she came to live with us? I asked, my voice tight. What? No, how would I know her? I don't know, Linda. You tell me. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, could practically feel her calculating what to say next. Vanessa. Linda, please. I need the truth. I've told you the truth. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go. I'll see you Sunday. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, my heart pounding. She was lying. I knew it in my bones. They all knew David, his parents, maybe others. They all knew Mia was his daughter, and they'd all conspired to lie to me. The betrayal went so much deeper than David. It was his whole family. The people who'd prayed over me, who'd told me they loved me, who'd acted like they were on my side through every fertility appointment and every negative test. They'd all known, and they'd let me play the fool. That night, I confronted Mia. I didn't plan to. I'd wanted to wait, to gather more evidence, to be absolutely sure before I did anything irreversible. But when she came home from school, when she smiled at me and asked if I could help her with algebra homework, something inside me snapped. We sat at the kitchen table. I watched her work through equations, her brow furrowed in concentration, and all I could see was David. In every gesture, every expression. Mia, I said quietly, can I ask you something? Sure, she said, not looking up from her notebook. How much do you remember about your mom? Her pencil stopped moving. Not much. Why? Do you remember living with her? She shifted in her seat. A little. We moved around a lot. Different apartments. Different towns. Were you with her when she got arrested? No. She set down her pencil, finally meeting my eyes. I was already in foster care by then. My breath caught. What? I've been in and out of the system since I was 10. My mom couldn't take care of me. She'd disappear for weeks. I'd get placed with families, then she'd get clean and get me back. Then she'd relapse and I'd get taken away again. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was reciting a grocery list. Like this was just how life worked. So when David said, I stopped myself. When he said you were in foster care because your mom got arrested, I mean, yeah, technically. But I was already in the system. Had been for a while. Did you know David before you came here? She went very still. What do you mean? Had you met him before? Did you know he existed? And Vanessa, why are you asking me this? Please, Mia, just answer the question. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her face. Something wary and afraid. Yes, she said finally. I knew him. The room tilted. How? She hesitated, chewing her lip. He used to visit me. Not a lot, but sometimes. Every few months, maybe. When I was in different foster homes. He'd come and take me out for ice cream or to the movies. He'd always say he was my uncle, that he wanted to make sure I was okay. How long has he been doing that? Since I was little. 7 or 8, maybe? 7 years. David had known about Mia for at least 7 years. Had been visiting her in secret for 7 years while coming home to me and pretending to grieve our infertility. And he never told his wife about you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mia looked confused. I thought you knew. He said, when he came to get me, he said you wanted me here, that you'd been waiting for me. I wanted to throw up again. I wanted to scream. Instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. Mia, honey, I need to tell you something. And I need you to understand that none of this is your fault, okay? She looked terrified. Okay. David isn't your uncle. Her face went white. I ran a DNA test. I took hair from your brush and from his, and I had it tested. Mia, he's your father. Your biological father. She pulled her hand away from mine, shaking her head. No, that's not he would have told me, would he? Or would he have lied to you the same way he's been lying to me? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't understand. Why would he lie? Because he's a coward, I said, my voice breaking. Because he got someone pregnant 15 years ago and instead of taking responsibility, he hid you. And when it became convenient, when he could use you to fill the void in our childless marriage, He brought you here and lied about who you really were. Mia was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I moved around the table and pulled her into my arms, and she let me. She collapsed against me, crying into my shoulder the way a child cries for their mother. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry he did this to you. To both of us. We stayed like that for a long time. Two people who'd been deceived by the same man, holding onto each other because we had nothing else left. When she finally pulled away, her eyes were red and swollen. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted. But Mia, I need you to understand something. Whatever I do, whatever happens next, this isn't about you. You didn't ask for any of this. You're not the villain here. Does this mean I have to leave? My heart shattered. No, baby. No, you're not going anywhere unless you want to. I don't want to, she said quickly. I don't want to go back to foster care. I don't want to lose this. She gestured around the kitchen, at the house, at the life we'd built together. You're the only person who's ever actually cared about me. I cupped her face in my hands. Then you stay. No matter what happens between David and me, you stay. I promise. She nodded, wiping her eyes. But I need you to do something for me, I continued. I need you to not tell David about this conversation. Not yet. Can you do that? She hesitated, then nodded again. Why? Because I need time to figure out what to do, and I need to do it right. That night, when David came home from work, Mia and I were sitting on the couch watching a movie, a bowl of popcorn between us. We looked normal, happy. David smiled at the sight. My girls, he said warmly. I wanted to claw his eyes out. Instead, I smiled back. Hey, honey, how was work? Long. I'm exhausted. He kissed the top of my head. Then Mia's. What are we watching? The Hunger Games, Mia said quietly. Nice. Mind if I join? Actually, I said, standing up. I need to talk to you about something. Upstairs? He looked confused but followed me to our bedroom. I closed the door behind us. What's wrong? He asked. I turned to face him, studying his features. The man I'd loved for 7 years. The man I'd built a life with. The stranger. Your parents' anniversary party is coming up, I said. The 50th, he blinked, caught off guard by the subject change. Yeah, next Saturday. Why? I was thinking we should do something special. A slideshow, maybe. Photos from throughout their marriage. We could present it at the dinner. David's face lit up. That's a great idea. Mom would love that. I thought so too. I'll put it together this week. He pulled me into a hug. You're amazing. You know that? Mom's right, not every woman would do what you've done. Taking in Mia, making her feel at home, and now this. I'm so lucky to have you. I stood rigid in his arms, breathing in his cologne, memorizing this moment, the last time he'd hold me and not know what was coming. I'm the lucky one. I lied. Over the next week, I worked on the slideshow. I asked David and his parents for photos, childhood pictures, wedding photos, family vacations. Linda sent me hundreds, gushing about how thoughtful I was. I also gathered other materials. I made copies of the DNA test results. I printed them on professional paper, had them laminated. I created a folder with the timeline dates of when David had visited Mia over the years, cross-referenced with his work trips in our shared calendar. I pulled bank statements showing cash withdrawals that corresponded with those visits. I documented everything, and then I built 2 slideshows, one that Robert and Linda would expect, and one that would burn David's life to the ground. I also called a lawyer. A good one. The kind who handles high-asset divorces and doesn't play nice. I need to move fast, I told her, and I need to make sure I'm protected. She took notes while I explained everything. The lies, the secret child, the manipulation. The house is in your name, she confirmed. Yes, I bought it before we got married. He's not on the deed. Good. And you have proof of the paternity? Documented. Dated. Legally binding. She smiled. The kind of smile that meant someone was about to get destroyed in court. Then here's what we're going to do. Saturday arrived. The anniversary party was being held at an upscale event venue, a beautiful room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake. Linda had invited at least 80 people. Family, friends from church, colleagues of Robert's from his 40 years in banking. David wore a suit. Mia wore a dress I'd bought her, navy blue with small white flowers. She looked beautiful and terrified. In the car on the way there, she kept looking at me in the rearview mirror. I gave her a small nod. It's going to be okay. The party was in full swing when we arrived. People were mingling, drinking champagne, laughing. Robert and Linda stood at the front of the room, greeting guests, looking radiant in their matching formal wear. When Linda saw us, she rushed over. "Vanessa, oh, you look beautiful. And Mia, sweetheart, don't you clean up nice?" She hugged us both. Then David, "Thank you so much for coming. This is such a special day. Wouldn't miss it," David said, kissing her cheek. "Now, David told me you put together a slideshow," Linda asked me, her eyes bright with excitement. "I did. It's all ready to go. We can play it whenever you'd like." "Oh, let's do it during dinner." "That would be perfect." I smiled. Perfect. We made our way through the crowd. David's extended family was their cousins, aunts, uncles, people I'd met at holidays and family gatherings over the years. They all congratulated us on taking in that poor girl, praising us for our Christian charity. I smiled and thanked them and imagined their faces in an hour. Mia stuck close to me. At one point she whispered, "Are you really going to do this?" "Yes." "What if they hate you?" I looked at her. "They're going to hate me no matter what. At least this way, I get to tell the truth." Dinner was served at 7. We sat at a long table near the front. David, me, Mia, Robert, Linda, and a few of David's aunts and uncles. The food was incredible. Prime rib and roasted vegetables and wine that probably cost more per bottle than I made in a week. I could barely taste any of it. David reached over and squeezed my hand during the meal. "You okay? You seem quiet." "Just tired," I said. "Well, after this is over, we can head home. Maybe open a bottle of wine and relax." "Sounds perfect." Liar, liar, liar. After dinner, Robert stood up and clinked his glass. The room fell silent. "I just want to say a few words before we cut the cake," he began, his voice thick with emotion. 50 years ago, I married the love of my life, and every single day since then, she's made me happier than I ever thought possible. Linda, you're my rock, my partner, my everything. I thank God for you every day." People applauded. Linda wiped tears from her eyes. "And I want to thank all of you for being here tonight," Robert continued. "Family is everything. It's the foundation of a good life. And I'm so grateful that our family keeps growing." He gestured toward Mia, "welcoming new members and taking care of each other the way God intended." More applause. David leaned over and whispered to me, "That's our cue. You ready with the slideshow?" "Ready." I stood up, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I walked to the front of the room where the projector was set up, my laptop in hand. "Before we cut the cake," I said, my voice carrying across the room, "I put together a little presentation for Robert and Linda. A walk down memory lane." Linda clasped her hands together. "Oh, Vanessa, you didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," I said, meeting her eyes. "I think it's important to remember the truth about the people we love." I connected my laptop to the projector. The screen behind me flickered to life. The slideshow started innocently enough. Baby pictures of David, Robert and Linda on their wedding day. Family vacations. Christmas mornings. People smiled and pointed and made nostalgic sounds. And then the tone shifted. A photo appeared on the screen. David at 28, standing outside a rundown apartment building. The next photo, David holding hands with a woman I didn't recognize. She looked young, early 20s maybe. Dark hair, tired eyes. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Vanessa?" David's voice behind me. Confused. "What is this?" I didn't turn around. Just advanced to the next slide. David and the same woman, her belly round with pregnancy. The murmurs grew louder. Next slide. A baby, dark hair, 2 different colored eyes. "Vanessa, stop." David's voice was louder now, sharper. Next slide. The DNA test results, blown up so everyone could read them. Probability of paternity, 99.9. David Hayes is the biological father of Mia Rodriguez. The room exploded. People were shouting, gasping, turning to look at David. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Robert stood up so fast his chair fell backward. I finally turned around. David's face was white, bloodless. "Vanessa, what the hell are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth," I said calmly. "Something you've never bothered to do. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I walked toward him, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "You got a woman pregnant 15 years ago. You abandoned her. You let your daughter grow up in foster care while you played the devoted husband to me. And then, when it suited you, when you needed a way to fix our childless marriage, you brought her into our home and lied about who she was. That's not." He looked around frantically at his parents, at the sea of horrified faces. "That's not how it happened." "Then tell us how it happened, David." I crossed my arms. "Tell everyone the truth." He opened his mouth, closed it. His eyes landed on Mia, who was crying silently at the table. "I was trying to protect her," he said finally. "I didn't want people to judge her for being your daughter." I shouted. "You didn't want to take responsibility. You didn't want your perfect Christian family to know you'd had a child out of wedlock and abandoned her." Linda was crying now. "David, is this true?" He didn't answer. "Is this true?" Robert roared. "Yes." David whispered. "Yes, it's true." The room erupted again. People were standing, yelling, demanding explanations. I held up my hand, and somehow, miraculously, they quieted. "There's more," I said. I pulled a manila envelope from my purse and handed it to David. "You've been served. Divorce papers. I'm filing for full custody of Mia, since you've proven you're not fit to be her guardian. The house is mine, you're not on the deed. You have until Monday to move your things out." David stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. "And just so we're clear," I continued, my voice cold, "I've documented everything. The visits you made to her over the years, the money you spent, the lies you told. If you try to fight me on any of this, I will bury you." I turned to address the room. "I'm sorry to ruin your evening. Robert, Linda, you deserved better than this. You all did. But I'm done being lied to. I'm done playing along." I walked over to Mia and held out my hand. "Come on, sweetheart. We're going home." She took it, standing on shaky legs. Together, we walked out of that venue, past the shocked faces and whispered conversations, into the cool night air. Behind us, I could hear David calling my name, begging me to wait, to let him explain. I didn't look back. The days that followed were chaos. David tried everything. He called, he texted, he showed up at the house and pounded on the door until I threatened to call the police. He sent his mother to plead his case. He made a mistake. Linda sobbed on my doorstep. "But he's a good man, Vanessa. He loves you. He loves that girl. If he loved her, he would have claimed her," I said. "If he loved me, he wouldn't have lied. Please, please, just give him another chance." I closed the door in her face. Mia and I stayed holed up in the house for a week, ordering takeout and binge-watching TV shows. We didn't talk much about what had happened. We were both too raw, too exhausted. But slowly, she started to open up. "I always wondered why he never took me home with him," she said one night, curled up on the couch. "Why I had to stay in foster care when he clearly cared about me. I thought maybe it was because I wasn't good enough. Like, if I could just be better, act better, be less broken, maybe he'd want me." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Mia, no. This was never about you not being good enough. This was about him being a coward. Do you think my mom knew that he was my dad?" "I don't know, honey. Maybe that's why she cut off contact with his family. Do you think she's even alive?" I pulled her closer. "I'll help you find her, if you want. We can hire someone, get answers." She nodded against my shoulder. "I'd like that." 2 weeks after the party, the divorce was finalized. David didn't. We hired a private investigator to find her biological mother. It took 2 months, but he tracked her down living in a women's shelter in Kentucky, clean for 6 months, working at a diner. Her name wasn't Rebecca. It was Maria. We drove out to meet her on a Saturday in October. Mia was terrified the whole drive, bouncing her leg. chewing her nails. What if she doesn't want to see me? She asked. Then we turn around and come home, I said. But Mia, she carried you for 9 months. She kept you for 10 years before the system took you away. I think she wants to see you. Maria was waiting for us outside the diner, smoking a cigarette, looking nervous. When she saw Mia get out of the car, her face crumpled. Mija, she whispered. Mia ran to her. They held each other and sobbed, and I stayed back, giving them space, giving them this moment. Later, over coffee, Maria told us her story. How she'd met David at a bar 15 years ago. How he'd lied about being single. How she'd gotten pregnant and he'd offered her money to take care of it. When she refused, he disappeared. I tried to reach out to his family, she said, her accent thick. But they wanted nothing to do with me. Said I was lying. That their son would never do that. Did you know he was married? I asked gently. She shook her head. Not until later. Not until I saw his picture on Facebook with you. By then, I'd lost custody of Mia. I had nothing. I couldn't even take care of myself. But you're getting better now, Mia said. Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face. Every day, I get better. For you. So maybe one day, if you want, you could visit again. Mia looked at me. I nodded. I'd like that, Mia said. We drove home that night in comfortable silence, and I realized something. This was my family now. Not the one I'd planned for. Not the one I'd cried and prayed for through all those years of negative tests. But the one I'd fought for. The one I'd chosen. Mia fell asleep in the passenger seat, her head against the window, and I reached over and brushed the hair from her face. I love you, I whispered. She didn't hear me, but she would. I'd make sure she knew it every single day for the rest of her life. 6 months later, Mia and I were having breakfast when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Vanessa, David's voice. I hadn't heard it in months. My stomach tightened. What do you want? I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. For all of it. I glanced at Mia, who was watching me with wide eyes. Okay, I said simply. Is she happy? He asked, his voice breaking. Mia, is she happy? I looked at my daughter because that's what she was now. Legally and in every way that mattered. I looked at her smile, her confident posture, the light in her eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Yes, I said. She's happy. Good. That's good. He paused. Can I see her? Just once. I miss her. Mia shook her head firmly. No, David. You gave up that right when you lied about who she was. When you chose your reputation over her well-being. Please goodbye, David. I hung up. Blocked the number. Mia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you. Always, I said, because that's what mothers do. They protect. They fight. They choose their children over and over again, especially when those children aren't biologically theirs. It's been a year now since that anniversary party. Since I blew up my marriage and my life and rebuilt something better from the ashes. People ask me if I regret it. If I wish I'd handled it differently. If I ever think about taking David back. The answer is no. Because here's what I learned. Some lies are too big to forgive. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. And some people will choose themselves over you every single time, no matter how much you love them. David chose himself. His reputation. His comfort. His perfect life with his perfect Christian family. And in doing so, he abandoned his daughter. He manipulated me. He betrayed everyone who loved him. I chose differently. I chose truth. I chose Mia. I chose myself. And you know what? I'm happier now than I ever was in my marriage. Mia is thriving. We have game nights and inside jokes and lazy Sunday mornings. We're building a life together, one that's honest and real and ours. Maria comes to visit once a month. She's been sober for over a year now, working her program, rebuilding her life. She and me are slowly, carefully building a relationship. It's not perfect, there's a lot of hurt to work through, but they're trying. And that's more than David ever did. As for David's family, I heard Robert and Linda moved to Florida. Needed a fresh start after the scandal. David's still in Ohio somewhere, working some dead-end job, living in his parents' old house. I don't think about him much anymore. Don't wonder what he's doing or if he's sorry or if he ever thinks about what he lost, because the truth is, he didn't lose anything. You can't lose something you never really valued in the first place. But me, I gained everything. I gained a daughter. I gained my self-respect. I gained a life built on truth instead of lies. And that's worth more than any perfect marriage or perfect family ever could be. So if you're reading this, if you're living inside a lie, if you're wondering whether you should blow up your life to find the truth, I can't tell you what to do. Everyone's situation is different. But I can tell you this. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve to be chosen. And if the people in your life can't give you that, if they choose their comfort over your dignity, if they lie to your face while you're breaking apart, then maybe it's time to choose yourself. Even if it means burning everything down. Even if it means standing alone in the ashes. Because from those ashes, you can build something real, something true, something that's actually yours. I did. And I've never looked back. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you're not alone. There are so many of us out here, fighting to rebuild after betrayal, fighting to choose ourselves, fighting to create families that are built on truth instead of lies. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Let's build a community of survivors who refuse to stay silent, because our stories matter, our pain matters, and our healing matters most of all. Thank you for listening to mine.